Welcome back to Roundtail Restoration, everybody. My name's Chris. Next to me is my 1964 Triumph TR4. At the end of my last video, I mentioned that I got the sills welded in, the floors are welded in sufficiently and all that kind of good stuff. So the next major milestone here is to get the body off so that I could start working and refurbishing the chassis. So that's what this video is going to be all about. Thanks for watching. Let's get it sorted. Mentioned that I was going to put the doors on to provide some rigidity when I was lifting the body, and I've changed my mind on that. The reason is I want to try to minimize the weight on the car when I snap it up with the engine hoist. So that bar that you see that's going across right there, I'm going to pull that off because it's in the way of a repair, and two, it's not going to really provide me rigidity down there because I think it's too close to the sill. And what I want to do is put angle iron, what I've got them cut to fit already. What I'm going to do is I'm going to weld the angle iron up in here. And I did it before on the other side. I'm going to come back and do it on this side now. And that'll provide support up high. And then I'll probably just run one piece of stock across at an angle, just one, and call it good from there, just to tie in the side of the car on both sides. Maybe make an X. I'll see what it looks like and how it's going to shape up. And then I need to make brackets that I can, lifting points that are in the workshop manual. I'll show you that. But now we're going to cut this one off and then get the other two welded in and then look at putting a support bracket across. All right, that came off nice and easy. Except to put a little hole in there. So now we're going to head and shave or get these cleaned up and get the paint off of them so that's ready to weld in these guys. All right, not my prettiest welds as they usually aren't, but that should hold. All right, move on to the other side. All right, that should do that. We'll look at doing a cross piece. Getting all fancy now, what I did here is kind of bevel cut it and flushed it off on both sides so I could get it at an angle. And I used the angle iron, that'll give me the sufficient stiffness, I think, then to put two separate pieces across. So I've got it all cleaned up here, and I'll just tack these two pieces together, and then that'll be it for that. It's nice with this thick metal, you just go to town with the welder, you don't have to worry about burning through or nothing. All right, so that should be more than sufficient. And now that that's braced, it'll still allow me to put the doors on if I want for some fitment and everything, so that's good. And next up, I'm going to give myself some more tack welds, plug welds in the spots like the inside on the floor. One, I want to do the prop shaft tunnel on the passenger side. I hadn't tacked that in yet. And a couple spots on the A-post to inner sill. And then a couple spots on the more forward A-post to the inner sill. And I think that's really it though. And then we're going to go around and identify all the chassis bolts and get those pulled out. This is the bracket that I was mentioning that the workshop manual calls out to be fabricated. They mount where the hood hinges mount, or the bonnet hinges mount. So that they got two of those. This is about 16 gauge, 14 gauge steel. I'm not real crazy about that being successful, but we'll see. Back here, what the workshop manual had called for was the seat belts that were into the wheel well. And I think that was or like TR4A maybe. The early ones just had lap belts, not 3-point belts. I intend to convert them, but for now, all I've got is the lap belt points, and you can see there's that black eye hook down there. Got a guy right here, and that's the plates. Really dark, let me go to the other side. That's that reinforcement plate right there where that comes through. Now that's not welded to the car, so really I have a feeling that all of the force is going to be transmitted into that hole that it goes through. So I'm not using a cherry picker. I'm not real crazy that this is going to work real well, and then I'm not going to be a little nervous about snatching it up with that. So we'll see. We'll see if that's the way I'm going to end up doing it. But now I've got to go through and find all of the mounting bolts, and there's a lot of them all over the place. And some of them are obviously with the floor and everything. I know where all those are, but there's others that I'm not too sure. There's bumper supports up here that I think are going to have to get disconnected in some way, if taken off the frame probably. You can see that guy right there. And there's bolts in here and bolts in the back. So anyway, we'll just go through and start looking for all those and get them out, and then the body should be loose. So got quite the windstorm going on right now, in case you can hear that, but a thunderstorm. But so you can see this rear valance here. I started to chip into it a little bit, and that thing is full of Bondo. You can see there all the nastiness. Nice big old chunk here. I got a replacement front valance with the car, but not a rear, and the rear is what it needed more, I think, than the front. But I think what I'm going to do, I don't have everything here that I need to pull the body off. All the bolts are removed, things loose. I can lift it at each corner by myself, but I don't have the engine hoist here. So in the meantime, I think I'm going to look into trying to get this rear valance off. It doesn't look like it's connected in too many spots. Doesn't look too incredibly complicated, but I might just take it off and go from a repair with it off the car. I think it's going to be too difficult to repair it on the car, getting behind everything and all that kind of stuff. So I'll go ahead and try to do that. Got the rear valance most of the way off. One thing I didn't consider were all these spot welds in here that hold the boot floor to it, but they weren't too bad. Just run the chisel down until you get to a spot, bend the metal back a little bit so you can kind of make a little crimp there, and then just knock it with a punch. I have a nice little punch here so that it'll start the drill bit. The ones that are going to be painful, there's probably 2 or 3 spot welds. There's a flange both on the rear fender and on the valance in both sides there. Even got a little bit of lead here, but they're hard to get to because the valance curves down and away, and it blocks the drill from getting in there. So I'm going to have to get on my back, I think. But that should be the last little bit that's holding this guy in, and then I'll be able to get this off and eventually get the Bondo out of here and be able to get the Bondo, ground off outside so that it's not so much of a mess in here. So I will investigate how much new ones are. I'm sure they're, at least a couple $100, but it's not. It doesn't look terrible. Whoever fixed this car really liked the slide hammer. There's slide hammer stuff all over this. Who knows how long ago this was. But at least getting this rear valance off, you can see that big crimp right here. I'll be able to get into that at least, and hopefully maybe be able to pull that out a little bit. So it's probably going to be pretty tough with such a crease there. But anyway, so we'll get it back out and see if I can get up into those flanges in there, and then get this puppy out. All right, well, it's off. I could see me with the Sawzall there. I didn't really want to sacrifice this flange, but that's what I ended up doing, unfortunately. But I do have that part of the car that I got off a donor car because of the accident damage that's back here. There's both accident damage on both sides. This side over here is not as bad. But anyway, so that's that guy. At least I'll be able to obviously get to it a lot better and see if I can't make it better instead of all these see all the Bondo worms and all that in here. So not horrible coming off. Definitely probably going to end up being worth it, I think. But that's it for now. So I got a little surprise visit out to the garage this evening. I got my Bauer guy over here that you can see, that surface conditioning tool. I don't remember what the fancy name is for it. I showed you guys that before. And I'm going to take down this rear valance. These are not cheap. They're like $500+, and that's from Rimmer Brothers. So this is definitely going to be a good attempt at a repair before I spend $500 or $600 on a patch for this. But I got my my breathing mask here because I expect this to be nasty. Earmuffs, safety goggles, and all that kind of stuff. And that's also why I'm outside. So we're going to go to town here. All right, well, it works, but I don't know how much more efficient it is than those paint strippers that I use on my 4.5 inch angle grinder. So I'm gonna go get that with a new one of those and see if that does better. I have a feeling that it's going to. And I am a mess. Quite dusty. Well, I gotta say that at least for that application, I preferred the angle grinder. And this is a Hercules one. I picked this up probably a third of the way through the restoration of the Spitfire. So that's probably been 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And the thing, it gets hot. It's really hot right now. I can barely touch it. But I was running it pretty long. But I have a feeling it's on its way, but it's been treating me good so far. The Bauer brand, if you keep up with Harbor Freight, that's the middle expensive one. But at least in that application, this was not as aggressive and not as good and not as quick. It might be a little bit different of a point, right? I think this is more like it's called a surface conditioning tool, so I'm not sure that it's really designed and spin up real fast to strip the paint like I'm looking for in that case. And I think because of the much wider surface area, a much flatter surface probably would have been better. But you know, I'll still continue to use it. It worked pretty good when I did it on a wing. But for this purpose today, this grinder and this paint stripping disc worked pretty good. And that's a Benchmark abrasive cheapo brand from Amazon that held up okay. So that's what I'm going with in these code pieces at least. This thing's obviously seen better days. I don't know if you can really see the shadows in there that well, but still some holes to punch through there. That's not that'll be a pain in the rear. I dealt with that quite a bit on the front of the bonnet for the Spitfire. Same thing on the other side here. So the big holes, the big dents they tried to fix. The not so big dents, it looks like they just slathered body filler on there. So there's not really a good spot on here where the contour is still alive. So I did kind of take this guy before I did anything, but that used to fit right there with the Bondo, but who knows if that's even accurate. So obviously the fender sides here are going to be good, but that's a different little bit different of a curve because it droops down. But anyway, we'll hammer, dolly, flattening spoon or spoon, whatever those things are called, and just try to work it slowly but surely, see if I can't work it out. But hopefully I'll get the engine hoist over here in a couple days and get this body off. But for now, that's a night's work. So hang on and we'll see where we get to next. All right, so at some point in the car's life, this took a shot back here, and there's a heavy crease in here, which I'm not really showing you. And it even looks like they put body filler in there, which is unfortunate. But anyway, right in here, there's a big crease, and I'm gonna try to get this out, and I'm not quite sure how to do it. You can see this flange, which should be vertical, or at least, you know, this way is pushed out. So it got hit in here, and it flattened it, and this whole thing is all messed up. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've already drilled this snap out, and what goes in there is part of the spare tire cover. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up and get all the paint off of here. I've got a propane torch where I'm gonna try to soften the metal a little bit. I've got my stud puller and various other tools and sundries here just to see if I can't get lucky and just kind of experiment here and see what happens, really. All right, so I got that cleaned up, and there's some brass here, so there's definitely some brazing. I'm not sure if that's original or not, but I'm not quite sure how to get this out. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. I mean, there's a big crease here that I can knock in and hopefully pull that out, but I'm afraid if I don't put pressure out this way, that's not going to really work all that well. So let me think about this here a little bit, and I'll see what I can come up with. All right, so what I started doing here is I've got a puller there, and I've tried to flatten this out in here, and what's happened is that seems to be kind of working, but I think what's happening is all this piece on the outside is staying static. This piece on the inside is flattening it out, and what it's doing is this is a big deep valley in here, and it should be relatively flat. And I think all I'm doing is concentrating all the strain right in that little spot. And as I go ahead and continue on to flatten this out, with this not moving, that's just going to make that worse and worse and worse. So you can see there's a big, huge crease right here, and that's not going to help that situation at all. It doesn't appear that there's an easy way to relieve this. I think this piece right here, this little moon-shaped kind of guy, might be a unique piece. I think that might be a standalone piece. If that is, I'm going to be golden, because I'll be able to get this out and get that on a workbench, and then I'll be able to relieve all my pressure, and it'll be set. So I think that's what I'm going to explore right now and see if that's a unique piece. And if it is, that's going to, I think that's going to save me here. So we'll go ahead and we'll investigate a little bit with the drill and some chisels and hammers and blunt medieval tools here and see what I can't figure out. All right, well, that's definitely a good deal there. So I didn't do too much damage. There's a lot of brazing in this corner over here, some brazing down here, but I think that's going to make it a heck of a lot easier now to square up. So obviously this will need some massaging. I can probably do that on the anvil without much trouble. And then in here, now that that's kind of relieved, I should be able to just kind of knock that out, and then I'll be able to get this all cleaned up and get this piece welded back on. So that's a good deal. At least I know that for the other side there, which is a little bit beat up, but not so much on this piece, but behind the light there. At about 80% solution here. There's still some fiddling to do with it to make it fit back flush, but it's pretty squared up. Nothing worse for wear here. This hole here is for that snap that I had showed you earlier. It needs to come this way a little bit, but that's nothing that a little bit hammering. This needs to get bent in a little bit, and there's some brazing here that needs to get ground off, but otherwise that's pretty good. I just took a hammer to it and flattened it back out. A little bit of work left right there, but otherwise it's not that hard crease that it used to be. So happy that's the way that was constructed. It let me kind of get away with stuff there a little bit, and we'll move on from there. Not particularly crazy about this setup, but I'm not sure any other way to be able to do it here. So we're gonna got the engine hoist, as you can see, with a balancing bar, whatever, load leveler, whatever those things are called, and the pick points in the back are obviously much closer to the center of the gravity, I think, than the front is. My guess is the center of gravity of this thing is about where the seats would be. So I'm going to let the hoist kind of find its happy place there, and then lift it up just enough for the tires to clear, and then roll the chassis this way. And then I've got jack stands on furniture mover rollers that I'll just set the chassis back down on that, and that'll give me a little bit of mobility on that thing, and kind of tuck it in the corner over there, and then be able to have the chassis clear. So hopefully nothing bends or buckles or breaks or whatever. Wish me luck. All the straps are no longer under tension, and it's off. Good deal. Well, no real surprises here, or at least it doesn't appear so. Nothing, not quite sure this big old dent here, if it's a dent or if it's supposed to be that way. And then this is the one place that I was concerned with on the frame. Pretty heavily pitted there. Might even actually be through there. And this was because that hunk of floor was gone, and the water just sat in there and rusted. So that'll be definitely something that I'll look at repairing. I had to do a frame repair on the Spitfire, so hopefully that doesn't go bad. But everything else looks okay. The springs are replacement springs. There's written over here, you can kind of see that TR4 motors or whatever it's called there. So this car has been over a couple times, at least once. So, but we'll go ahead and start getting some stuff off here. Do brake lines first and label all that stuff so I can rebend it. But otherwise, no major surprises. So that's good. All right, here's that spot on the frame. I'm going to take a wire wheel to it and clean it up and see where replacement is going to need to happen. Got the brake lines off, not the emergency brake stuff, because it's a little complicated, a little weird, and it's all covered in nasty grease, pretty thick back there. But we'll go ahead, take a look at this here real quick, see what we see. You can see I got a hole here, there's a hole here. If I'd ground a little bit more, there'd probably have been another hole here. There's a hole back here. So this whole piece from here, get my finger in the shot there, from here, obviously to about here, and then down maybe halfway or so is gonna all get replaced. So that's spot welded right along this seam up here. So we'll have to drill all those out, and there's a lot of spot welds in here. Have to drill or grind all that out, and then fabricate a new piece, get it welded in. So it doesn't look too horrible. I'd rather it be a straight shot than this curve in there, but we'll see how it goes. So that's it for that. Got the body sitting over there on jack stands, not incredibly stable. We'll definitely come up with a better solution there for that, but that'll work for now. So as long as I don't run into it too hard and knock it off something that would kind of be horrible. But that's going to do it. So a lot of work here on the frame, but like I had mentioned before, some work that I am more confident in doing and ready to get into, and giving the body a break, and my poor welding skills and everything else a break. So that's going to do it for the day. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.